Hello, welcome. Alan here with Discovering Buddhism. Welcome to our restarting of the program, Discovering Buddhism program. Good to see a few faces there, not faces, but numbers. Hope you're well, and it's good to have you with me and be able to get together like this and study the Dharma. Amazing, really, that we can still do it. So just for anyone who's new and they just joined Discovering Buddhism and you want the materials, I can easily send them to you if you just give me your email address. Best way probably is to just do that on the comment where it says live chat. Just put your name and email address and I can send you the materials, which are really good to have, so you can do some reading between the classes. Just the timing, remember we actually were doing 6 o'clock before, and we had trouble at 8 o'clock when it seemed that the congestion on the NBM was at its maximum, and we often lost contact, the link dropped out. So that happened a few times, so we changed the time till 6 to 7:30. But unfortunately, when they did the program at VA, they forgot and they actually put it back to 7. So I've been told that when we get a new, the next module will be back at 6 o'clock if we're still in lockdown. So I think 6 o'clock seemed to work better as far as the traffic on the NBM goes, and maybe probably better for people if they're not going to work and so on. It might be easier to start a bit earlier, particularly in winter. So what else was I going to say? Just the time. So since it's a kind of a monologue, I encourage you please to, oh good, thanks Ben, the video is working great, that's great. So because it's hard to get an interactive class, an hour and a half I think could be a bit long. So I'm actually going to sort of work more towards an hour and a quarter, between an hour and a quarter. Just see how that goes, and do feel free to ask any questions on live chat, and that's probably the best way to just write a question. If I haven't got time during the class, I can deal with it the next class. And so any comments, questions, great, just ask. It's great to have some questions, comments, whatever. So this is quite a big teaching, a spiritual teacher, quite an advanced teaching. Maybe before we start, probably I'll just stick to the usual general layout of the class. We usually do 5 minutes breathing meditation to calm ourselves, get ready for the class, just 5 minutes practice. Then I'll talk till probably around about 8, and then I'll try and do at least one guided meditation at the end of the class that relates to the topic that we've just done for about 15 minutes. So tonight I'm going to do why we need a spiritual guide. And most of the meditations I do come from the materials that the central office provides for this course. Remember, it all comes from FPMT central office. And in particular, the meditations come from a transcript of the teachings on this module by a wonderful teacher called Connie Miller, Venerable Connie Miller, who helped design the course. So they're excellent. I sent you that. You should have there's a one-page summary of what we're going to do in the next 4 weeks, which is not strictly, we may vary it a bit. We won't be able to do, of course, a retreat day because it's a lockdown. Then the second thing is tonight's little summary of what we're doing tonight. Whether we'll get through it all or not, I'm not sure. Then the readings, compulsory readings. Well, compulsory if you can get through them, but at least try and read some of them. They're very good, mostly by Lama Zopa Rinpoche. And the last one is the transcript by Connie Miller of her teachings on this topic, which is quite long. It's probably more than 50 pages, but very readable because it's just basically her talking the topic. But Connie Miller is a very, very senior nun who has been ordained for since the 70s, maybe, one of Lama Yeshe's students. And she's been involved with education in FPMT for many years. So good teachings from her. All right, so let's just start with, say, 5 minutes of settling the mind and doing some just quiet breathing meditation. So get comfortable, either sitting, lying down, whatever's most comfortable. Okay, so now we just come into our inner world, what's happening in the mind and the body. Start with our body. Just adjust it so we're fully balanced on the surface, chair or the floor. Eyes can be closed or just gently open. Shoulders relaxed. The neck just comfortable, slightly forward. Checking the muscles around the face and the eyes, softening them. Feeling the body contacting the floor or the chair. The gentle pull of gravity. We can use the breath to help let go. The out breath. With each out breath, sense that we're releasing all the physical tension in the body. Letting go of all the busy mind, busy day that we've had. Time to let go. Time to relax. Just gradually giving more attention to the breath moving in the body. The breath is always there, and now we give it our attention, all our attention. Just standing aside and watching the breath as it moves in and out of the body. Staying with the breath. We also keep guard, watch, monitoring our practice. Are we still on the breath? It's called vigilance or introspection. Like a spy, watching what's happening. And when we notice we've lost our point of concentration on the breath, we just be aware, distracting thought, and let go of that thought. Patiently, gently come back to the breath. Keep doing that. Don't lose patience. Just stay with the breath. Quietly watching the breath. Just resting there. Okay, just relax. Okay, so the spiritual teacher is the topic. We're up to topic number 4, module 4. I noticed that His Holiness the Dalai Lama points out that this topic, typically when it's taught in monasteries, spiritual teachers right at the beginning of introductory Buddhist teachings, because he says all the monks and nuns, if they're in a monastic setting, have a teacher, they've grown up in the monastery. So the idea of a spiritual teacher is not new. It's really just refreshing their devotion or their contact with the teacher and reminding them whereas in the West, it's usually a completely foreign topic. And so he does say it's probably good to put it later. If we're doing introductory Buddhist teachings, maybe a bit later after we've actually got some knowledge of the other teachings. So this is why I think this must be why he puts it in volume 2 of his books on Buddhist practice. So just let's look at the reading list. This is the bottom of that outline of what we're covering. I don't know if you can see it, probably back to front. So, of course, the sort of required reading, they call it required, is the Discovering Buddhist readings. They're all from Lama Zopa Rinpoche, our spiritual head of VI and FPMT. Good teachings, very direct. There's 4 teachings, extracts, and 3 of them are actually just a few pages. The second one is the longest. It's probably about 10 or 15 pages. So that's really the main one. So if you can, maybe just read what you can of that. Feel free to ask questions. Some of it will cover things that we will do later in the later weeks. So then, apart from the readings, I've got there the transcript by Connie Miller of her teachings. As I said, very good, and it also has the meditations in it. It has, I think, 6 meditations. She teaches the topic over 6 weeks, whereas we're going to do it over 4 weeks. So we're just condensing some of the topics. So that's good. I've sent you the digital copies. Then the second one I've got on the list is The Foundation of Buddhist Practice by His Holiness the Dalai Lama and Thupten Chodron. So this is these published 4 volumes of just basically the Lam Rim, which is the basic Buddhist teachings, particularly for Westerners. So he's just given these teachings in a Western format, assuming that he's teaching people who are new to Buddhism. And Thupten Chodron is the editor and also adds some teachings. She's a very senior nun, very close to His Holiness the Dalai Lama. So that's good. It's in chapters, volume 2, Foundation of Buddhist Practice, chapters 4 and 5. So I've actually just used His Holiness's outlines of the topic for the outlines of the topics that we'll cover. Says I think obviously His Holiness has picked probably the best sequence of topics for this topic of spiritual teacher. So if you can get that book, that's good, but don't worry if you can't. Practicing the Path by Yangtze Rinpoche. So this is that book we were using in the earlier modules last year. Practicing, and this year, Yangtze Rinpoche, great Tibetan teacher, teaching in the West, teaching in English, in America. And he published this book, which is, again, a summary of the Lam Rim in English, Lam Rim being the basic Buddhist teachings, Tibetan Buddhist teaching. So he has a whole chapter, I think it might be more than a chapter, on the spiritual teacher. The Heart of the Path. Now, this is one whole book by Lama Zopa Rinpoche, an amazing book, very extensive detail on the importance of the spiritual teacher and how to devote to the spiritual teacher, all the teachings, commentaries there, the most detail, more than we'll need for our 4 weeks, but if you want to get probably the most extensive book on the topic, The Heart of the Path by Lama Zopa, edited by Elsa Cameron. Elsa's a senior nun, Chenrezig, Queensland. She said it took her, I think, maybe 4 or 5 years to put it together. So that's definitely worth a look. Liberation, the Palm of Your Hand by Pabonka. That's the standard text on Lama Tsongkhapa's Lamrim Chenmo, it's his Pabonka being a very great teacher in Tibet before Tibet fell in late 1800s, early 1900s in Tibet. And so that book is like a transcript really of his teachings to monastics in Tibet on the Lamrim. Let's have a look now at the topics for tonight. This is on this big one outline. So I'm just having a look at some of the questions coming up. That's why I'm pausing. Yes, there's been some very sensational reporting of breaches when things go wrong with spiritual teachers. So we definitely deal with that in the later weeks, particularly the last week. We'll look at what happened with Sogyal Rinpoche, and particularly what even His Holiness has commented on that. So we'll definitely look at that. We won't just gloss over at that. We won't just gloss over it. And yeah, so when things do go wrong, and particularly if they get into the media, particularly if it's our own tradition or our own, Tibetan Buddhist, a Tibetan Buddhist teacher, it can be quite difficult. And so there's some good teachings on how to deal with this. This is all part of the topic of how to deal with things that seem to go wrong, or that behavior that's unusual or unacceptable by the teacher. So we definitely get to that. But we just sort of probably spent tonight just looking at the definitions and background and so on. And definitely Westerners new to the topic will usually start off being very apprehensive. That's the first point I've made there. Just the whole phrase Guru devotion can raise, the first thing we think about is what we've probably heard about in media and so on, the cults. In the 70s and 80s, there was a cult called the Jonestown Massacre. Some of you may be too young to remember, but Jim Jones, I think his name was, American charismatic cult teacher, collected some students from America, and they went to South America. It might have been, I can't quite remember, one of those unusual countries right up in the north of South America. So he formed this group, and they went into sort of lockdown in a very remote part of the jungle. The government wanted them out. The government knew this was not a good thing to have in their country. And Suriname, I think it was in a country called Suriname. And so there was this reputation they had when they got there that they were dangerous. So the government was trying to sort of shut them down. And when he realised the government was going to come and raid their little isolated retreat, he convinced, I think, 200 or 300 people to drink poison, and they all died. So following his example as a cult leader, and convinced them that they were all probably going to go to a better place. I didn't follow the actual teachings of it, but I remember when it was in the media, probably even before I met Buddhism. So these sort of things are going to happen, and because we don't have any really equivalent in the West of a guru or spiritual teacher, except possibly these crazy situations, that it tends to have a bad reputation. And also there's the idea that why trust? So why don't you make your own sort of decisions about your life? Aren't you just empowering yourself, trusting somebody else? So definitely people can come to the teachings on Guru devotion with difficult or different viewpoints. I think that's probably why His Holiness says it's probably better to leave it later. And even in his teachings in the book I've mentioned, he says some of these teachings shouldn't be taught to beginners. You should just wait until you've had more experience. So it's a difficult topic, difficult to teach, difficult to learn, difficult to study. And he says at the beginning, and also Connie Millercell says this in her teaching, rather than finding a spiritual teacher, it's better to just look at the teachings, try and connect the truth of the teachings, she's called it, and just see how they fit with our state of mind. When we read, say, teaching or compassion or any sort of Buddhist teaching, and if they ring true, or if we go to the centre and listen to a teacher and that seems to make sense, how it sort of clicks with something in our mind, that's the truth of the teachings might register to some extent. And I think certainly that's probably why I started. I didn't actually start looking for a guru. I didn't even know what a guru was. All I did was I did a philosophy degree at university and learnt really nothing important. I didn't really think, not of the big questions about, what are we here for, etc. I didn't really think, not of the big questions about, what are we here for, etc. So then, still looking, I had a sort of searching mind, and so it was just basically, I think actually going to Thailand on a trip and seeing how calm the people were, seeing the temples, thinking, there must be, because the religion seemed to be an integral part of people, Thai's life, must be something quite profound in the Thai, or in either Buddhism or Thai Buddhism, that is keeping these people so calm, such a sort of placid and quite spiritual place. So that was probably the beginning, 80s, might have been 70s actually, I think. And then looking for books to read, I came back to Sydney, and there was Theosophical Bookshop, was probably the only place you could buy books on other religions, Hinduism, Buddhism, so on. And so just getting as many books as possible, reading them, and then finding that there was one tiny little Buddhist centre in Sydney without a teacher. They used to just meet, and I think they just discussed books, or they had one person who'd been to Tibet or to India, and then they had visiting teachers. Some teachers would just come for maybe a night or two. So that was really the beginning, and then from that they said, from that little tiny centre, which was a Kagyu centre, I think, the students heard about Lama Yeshe coming to Chenrezig in Queensland. They said, we've got to all go up and hear Lama Yeshe's teaching. So I joined this group, went up by train overnight, and just spent a week in Chenrezig Institute, where Lama Yeshe was teaching a course on death and die. Very amazing course. It was one of his last courses in Australia, might have been the last or second last. And so that was fantastic, because this amazing person, who I definitely felt a connection with, particularly his laughter, because everything, he just brought joy. As soon as he walked into the gongpa, into the room, there was this sense of joy and happiness and laughter, and as if he sort of had this incredibly close connection with all of us, like we'd all known and he'd known us. It's quite extraordinary, really. So superhuman being, incredibly kind, competitively funny, compassionate, and obviously from there, just coming back to Sydney, wanted to sort of look at more things, did more reading, lots of reading, while still doing a fairly boring job, public service, and then the course in the Kopan course came up. Somebody, because nearly everyone who was studying Buddhism in Sydney in the 80s got it from India by going on a trip to India. They're mostly on the hippie trail and travelling overland and meeting the teachings in Tibet, in Nepal usually, or maybe India, mostly Nepal. So probably that was the second contact when I met Lama Zopa. Again, and Lama Yeshe and Lama Zopa were teaching together at the Kopan course, a double act. And so this was this amazing combination of, it's almost like two aspects. Lama Zopa very serious, and Lama Yeshe quite light-hearted, but teaching exactly the same thing, but in different ways, and relating very well to all the students. So probably then, after coming back from that, I actually did some short retreats, like little retreats around India. Went to Sri Lanka. It was kind of a year off doing on the road sort of thing, which was a fantastic opportunity. But when I came back, quite difficult to come back to the normal life. And that's probably when I started sort of going regularly. There was, then the Vajrayana Institute started soon after, 1983, I think it was, Venerable Roger. And so I came back and there was this amazing centre just starting off. Roger, I was very sceptical. And so it was gradual. And I think this is what's emphasised in all the teaching on Guru devotion or the spiritual guide. Just, it's very, don't rush, you know, there's no hurry. And so the other good book, which I didn't put on the reading list, is Lama Yeshe's biography. It just came out a couple of months ago. And it's the biography of his life. Lama Yeshe, our spiritual guide, a spiritual teacher for those who are older, who helped start the organisation with Lama Zopa. And he was actually Lama Zopa's teacher, one of his main gurus, Lama Yeshe. So in the book, it's actually just full of these wonderful stories about students from the West, just like us, going to one of his, either meeting him at the teachings or meeting him in some other way, and how he's actually relating to them in English. And there's this woman in France who didn't understand what he was saying, but for some reason, she understood his English, even though she didn't speak it. Because somebody explained later that he'd told her that she should become a nun. And that was the questions that she had. She was trying to ask him in French. He answered it in English, and she actually said that she understood the answer, even though it wasn't in French. So there's these wonderful, there's just innumerable stories about how Lama Yeshe had this connection. Every person had there's a different need for that person. Some of them might have needed to be told that they could be a nun. Others might be given jobs to do, like, you know, setting up a business. Others to run the family. Don't become ordained. Go and look after your family. That's your practice. So just so many different helpful comments tailored for each individual. So this is what a great teacher does. He has the ability to see into the mind streams of being, and then not only that, but know what they need to help them on the path. Some of it could be very unconventional. Some of it could be very tailored for that particular person, but not for somebody else. So this is part of great teachers. Great teachers, when we get to the qualities, the teacher can actually see the needs of each student and give them the advice they need. So, so let's just now, where are we? I'm just looking. Oh yes. So the other thing is at the beginning of the teachings, Connie Miller and I think other teachers like Lama Yeshe, Lama Zopa, they say, remember the three pots when you're listening to the teaching, particularly with Guru, the spiritual teacher, spiritual mentor. The three pots, have a mind that is not like the three pots. The first pot is upside down, so it can't get anything into the pot. So the mind needs to be open, ready to receive. The second pot is dirty, so everything that goes in it is polluted. So have the mind that is clean, open, and not contaminated with a lot of preconceived ideas, which are going to contaminate and bias our view. So a clean pot, and then the pot that should not have holes in it, because the holes will just, everything we hear will just leak out and disappear. So that's a distracted mind. The mind should be open, clear of preconceptions, and be able to focus on the topic, and not be leaky or distracted. So that's the same with all topics, all teaching. It's a good sort of introduction to every topic we're listening to. So just now looking at these terminologies just quickly, because you can read these